Hi, hi, beautiful filmmakers. How are you today? It is Monday, so that means that it's time for Filmmaker to Filmmaker. And some of you will know what that is. It's every Monday I take a question that someone has sent me about filmmaking or screenwriting, and I try to answer it as best I can and try to help people. And really, the idea of it is I see that a lot of people have the same problems, the same things come up for a lot of filmmakers, a lot of screenwriters. And so, this is a chance for me to try to help people who have this problem and give some ideas of how you can break through it. Because, the thing in life is every problem has a solution. I really believe that, and every obstacle that we come up against in our paths as filmmakers or as screenwriters, there's a way through it, there's a way past it, there's a way around it, and so I'm here to just try to help you to find your way around the things that you feel are blocking you. That's what this is all about, or the things that are stressing you out. Also, people can ask more practical questions too, like I have in the past done questions about working with actors or things like that. And so, hey, so I'm happy as well to answer questions that are sort of more practical nature. It seems so often I get things coming to me that are questions that are sort of about doubt or fear or mindset things. And these are big things for us. These are things that can really hold us back. I just want to say before I get started on the question, this week's question, I don't know about you guys, I watched the Sundance Awards on Saturday night. I love watching those, because they just give me hope for the film industry. Like every time, it's always just this gleeful thing where these people who made movies against the odds and made movies that are about quirky, personal, weird things are suddenly celebrated, and they've made their movie and they're up there on the stage getting an award for it. I was there once, I got my award in 2010, and I'll never forget that moment, getting up on that stage. I was absolutely terrified. I was overjoyed, but I was also terrified. But I watched it this year, and I don't know if you guys watched it. If you haven't, you should Google it and check out a film called Clemency won the biggest prize for the US narrative film, which is a big deal. And the lady who wrote it and directed it, she got up and it was just, I was just blown away. And if you haven't seen her speech, just check it out because it's life affirming and encouraging in all the ways, and it's that thing. She talked about how she'd been trying to make the film since 2011. This is 2019, so 8 years of trying to get it made. And she talked about all the no's and how people kept saying there's not an audience for this movie. This movie, no one wants to see it. And now she's standing at Sundance getting the top award for it. And I just thought, this is what every filmmaker needs to always remember. And it ties in with the question that I'm going to answer this week. A screenwriter wrote to me, he said that he has written a screenplay that he really had all the faith in, that he really just, it's not his first screenplay, but I think it's one of, I got the feeling that he hasn't written millions of them. He's not a screenwriter, earning his living as a screenwriter yet. And he felt really excited about it. He gave it some people to read, and they were positive, so that he submitted it to competitions, and it has got nowhere. And then he has also now, tried to get a couple people in the industry to read it, and he hasn't heard back from them. And he's feeling very discouraged. And he wrote to me saying, what do you do? The first thing to say about this, first of all, everyone who's a screenwriter will have experienced this, okay? And welcome to the world. Welcome to screenwriting. So the first thing to know, and if you watch these regularly, these filmmaker sessions, you'll have heard me saying this before. The first thing to know is that really I can't tell you what to do. You have to trust your own inner voice. And I always feel like the biggest, most powerful thing any of us can do as artists and on our path as artists is learn to tune into ourselves and trust our intuitions and our guidance in ourselves, because then we really won't go wrong. And so that's the first thing that I'll say to you, to the screenwriter. Trust your own inner voice. Should you keep working on it? Should you write a new draft? Should you move on to something else? Should you keep pushing it? Those are kind of your options, right? Like either rewrite it, or keep pushing it as it is, or focus your attention on something else. That's kind of what it is. And so choose for yourself, get quiet and go, what am I guided to do? What does it really feel like I ought to do? And trust that, like whatever you feel is what you should do, okay? Because really I feel like you can't go wrong if you do that. You'll be guided to a good place, all right? So that's the number one thing. Number two, I go like screenwriting essentially is a numbers game, right? Most scripts don't get made. Okay, even the most successful screenwriters in the world, they were probably working at a 5-to-1 ratio. Like 5 scripts that they write that don't get made to 1 that does. Seriously, it's that bad. So you kind of have to accept that, like, you're gonna write a lot of stuff that just doesn't land, you know? And it's gonna hurt. That's the other aspect of that. I'm really sorry to say that, but it will hurt. You know, you will write things that you freaking love and that you know will make an amazing movie or an amazing TV series, and it won't get made. It won't get traction for whatever reason. And at any time you can take that as a sign you should give up, or a sign that you carry on, okay? And I go, like, basically, you know, I feel like to be a successful screenwriter, you kind of have to be like a woman who's a mother in the 1700s. And if you wanted to be a mother in the 1700s, what you did was you had lots of kids, right? Because you knew half of them would die before they turned 5, seriously. You know, so that you'd have like 12 kids so that you knew that maybe 5 would make it, right? And I think that it's the same thing for screenwriters. I just go, like, if you're serious about this, like, just be prolific, man. Be like that mother in the 1700s and just pump them out, you know? Because be aware that most of them are not going to make it the distance. And it's going to be heartbreaking, you know? And it might be the one that you love the most that doesn't make it and all that stuff. But that's your job, all right? And this brings me to, I noticed this week on Twitter, you know, it's this season when pilots are getting picked up by networks to, you know, to be made. And a few writers that I know had pilots in development with networks and they didn't get picked up. And let me tell you, even to have a pilot in development is a huge achievement. You know, like the networks are probably choosing about 400 things to develop, 400 projects out of probably thousands. And then out of those 400, they choose maybe 50 to go ahead to shoot the pilot. And then out of that 50, they choose like 10 to go to series, right? It's brutal. So the fact that these writers are even getting into development is amazing, you know, and they're getting paid and all that stuff. But still, for them, it's incredibly painful if after all that work and getting so close, it doesn't get picked up, right? And I saw this week a hashtag that a number of them were using, which was hashtag #ThisIsTheGig. And, you know, I encourage this writer just to check out, like, go on Twitter and do hashtag #ThisIsTheGig. And read what some of those writers have written about their rejections. You know, about the fact that they've written 20 drafts, you know, with notes from producers. And they've jumped through all the hoops. And in the end, the thing has not been picked up. And there's nothing they can do about it. And this project is dead for all intents and purposes. And now they have to find the energy to do it again. It's not easy. You know, and I just want to say, it's not easy, you know, like, being a screenwriter is not easy. It's not an easy path. And it can seem it because, like, we just look at people who are having the massive success. We see the person up on stage at Sundance and it seems easy, you know. We see the person being reviewed in our newspaper, or we watch a show on Netflix and read about the creator of it, and we like, that just all seems like it all just slots into place. I guarantee each of these people, whether they're on the stage accepting an award, whether you're reading a review of their work or a profile of them in the New York Times or whatever, I guarantee you they have had hardship, they have had rejection, they have had times where they're like, why am I doing this? What is the point? Should I give up? And here's the thing ultimately for you, you know, you get to choose whether you make the experience of failure, whether you choose to make it the end of your story or whether you choose to make it something that you grow from and develop and move on. And we all get to choose this every time, and this isn't just at the screenwriting stage. And I use the word failure, I hate that word in a way because it feels like such a bad thing. But it's not, you know, like when I say failure, I just mean it didn't meet your expectations. You know, you had certain hopes, it didn't get there, right? So you had hopes for the screenplay, it's not reaching those hopes, right? Or you have, and this can happen at any stage of your film, you know, like you want a certain financier, they don't come on board. You want to get in a film festival with your completed movie, it doesn't get accepted. You know, this happens all the time, right? And I go, with all of these things, you get to choose. Like, you choose whether you take that as a sign that you should give up, you take it as a sign that you shouldn't be doing this, you take it as a sign that, you know, that you're meant for something else. You can choose that. Or you choose to believe that there's lessons here for you to learn and you can move on and you're going to get better at what you do because you had this experience. And it's tough. I'm not underestimating it. And for this screenwriter, like, I get it. I feel your pain when you've written something that you really believe in, and for some reason, it's not getting loved. You thought you entered it in that first competition, and you thought you were going to win first prize. I think I read a quote by Nora Ephron the other day who said something like, every writer, when they start a screenplay, is also starting their acceptance speech for the best screenplay Oscar. And I totally get that, because I think, of course we dream. Of course, like when we're like writing a new script, that we are kind of going, this is the one. This might be the one. This is going to win the competitions. And then we don't really know what we've got until we start putting it out there. And then when we start putting it out there, it can sometimes be shocking because we don't get the reception that we expected. I had one thing that I worked on for like a year. It was a pilot. It was kind of like a mini series. And to be honest, it's still like the love of my life still, this project. And and I finished it, and I was absolutely convinced that this thing was just gonna go gangbusters. I developed it with a certain company. I just was absolutely sure that this was gonna be like the biggest thing, and it was gonna change my life in every way and all that good stuff. And it just never got any traction. Like Fox were interested in it for like a minute and made me like rework it in crazy ways. And, I don't know, it's just like, and it's devastating because like I still believe in that project. I'm still like, that is the best thing I have ever written, and I don't think I'll ever write anything better than that. But for whatever reason, other people didn't agree. For some reason, like I had management, I had like people putting it out, I had a company behind it. It just didn't get through. And as I say, you ultimately have to decide for yourself. Like, what are you going to do? Do you keep working on that thing? I say no. At a certain point, I say start working on other things. Like I said earlier in this, I know it's so frustrating. And like I said earlier in this, be like the mother in the 1700s who's absolutely wants to be a mom and just keep having children, right? And know that most of them will die. And it's okay, right? That's just the way it is. That's the world we live in. Right? And we're so lucky to live in this world today that our actual physical children don't die. But, our film projects do. Our film projects often do pass away. And it's out of our control. So I just want to wrap that up now and say thank you for joining me if you were here live. I have actually started to do something crazy, which is put these onto YouTube afterwards. I did it last week. I'm figuring out the technology, and I will do it this week. So I will put this onto YouTube. So if you don't catch it on Instagram, and basically what we've been talking about today was a screenwriter who is dealing with rejection and wondering what to do with it. It's funny that so much of what we talk about is about this, and I urge you again to look at the hashtag #ThisIsTheGig on Twitter. This is our lives. This is what goes on in filmmaking and screenwriting. We can focus on the big successes, but the truth is we're going to suffer a lot of rejection in order to get those successes. And we're going to mourn these projects, and we're going to grieve these scripts, and we're going to feel sad about these things that didn't happen, that we wanted to happen so badly. But we will keep creating. We will keep creating. And that's what matters, because I don't think at the end of the day, it's all about what we create. It's about the process of creating. And that's why we should keep doing it. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. And it's been lovely to see a whole bunch of very dear friends and good people. I love you guys. And I hope you are having a wonderful Monday. And I will hopefully see you soon. All right. Bye.